Hi, this is Lori from the Pink Girly channel, and I'm here to share with you another light bulb moment, this time having to do with storage of my vintage playing cards. I've started a little collection of vintage playing cards. I love anything vintage, and these cards are just absolutely darling. And some of them I have one of, some of them I may have two or three of, but I don't want to take the risk of using them in a project and then not having the card. So I decided to create a little, if you will, playing card journal. And I'm just creating pages to tuck in my playing cards. And then when I get my pages finished, I'm going to cinch them all together with the Copic stitch, make a cover, and I'll have them, at least one copy of them, one card, in a secure place where I'm not in jeopardy of using the card by mistake. Now, this is not an acid-free storage solution. This is just my idea of what I think is going to work for me. It may or may not work for you, but I'm going to show you what I am doing here. So what you need is some heavier weight cardstock. I'm using 110 black cardstock. Some scrapbook paper, cardstock weight, maybe 65 pounds. Something that you have laying around in your stash, perhaps, or maybe an old paper pad that you haven't used all of it. I'm using a Tim Holtz paper pad. It's an 8x8 Christmas pad that I bought a couple years ago and haven't used. So I'm using that. You'll need a pencil. You'll need some kind of X-Acto knife, some glue, a ruler, and I'm going to use this little Stampin' Up! Punch. I'll tell you more about that in just a few moments. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've cut all my black cardstock. I cut it, well, it was 8.5, and then I cut it to 3 3/4. So I've got 8.5 by 3 3/4. And then I went ahead and pre-cut my decorative cardstock to 8 inches by 3 1/4. Now, like I said, my paper pad was 8x8, so it was just easy to cut the 3 1/4. Now, what I'm doing is coordinating the front and the back of the page. So I've got the same decorative paper on each. Certainly, you don't have to do that. You use what works for you, colors that work for you, and what you might have on hand. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put this aside, and I'm going to take my decorative cardstock and I'm going to flip that over. I'm going to take my pencil and my ruler, and I'm going to start from the bottom, and I'm going to make inch marks. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe that's all I need. We'll see as I punch. I get very confused when I'm working with numbers. So what I want to do now is I want to take my ruler and I'm going to draw a line between those two markings. Now, this does not have to be perfect for me. If you're the type of person who needs to have everything measured out and coordinated, go for it. I eyeball stuff and do as little measuring as I need to because it confuses my brain. Now let's see. I think what I need to do is I wanted my first line 4 inches down. I'm not quite sure I've got that right. So let's just see what I did here. Okay, so I'm going to ignore this line here. And I forgot I want to punch from the bottom. All right. So now I'm going to take my little X-Acto knife and I'm just going to cut from end to end, not through the paper. You want to leave yourself maybe about a 1/4 inch or so, depending on what punch you use or how you decide to work this out for yourself with what you have available. Now, if you have a metal edged ruler, that's wiser to use that. but I left mine in the other room. So I'm just using this plastic ruler, and I'm trying to be very careful not to slice off some of my ruler. So now when you have this and you've done this, you see it's still intact on the edges, and you just have your little slice marks. Now this little punch, I believe, is called a half circle punch. It is by Stampin' Up. I believe it is retired. And you can see it only does the top part of a circle. This here does not punch, it just punches around the top. Now, if you don't have this punch, I think what you can do is just take your X-Acto knife and make some kind of a marking like this. All right, and then just cut that, and that will make a little tab for you, right? But I'm going to use my punch because I have it. So I'm going to start at the bottom. Now I'm going to do 2 punches. When I first did my prototype and my idea, I did just 1 punch. And that holds the card okay. But then I decided, oh, why not do 2? So you can see here on my first page here, I did 2. And they're not quite even, but it's still going to hold my card. And I'm going to try to eyeball that and get it as straight as I can. And it might be easier to do it on this side rather than the pattern side. So I'm just going to take my little slot punch, half circle, and I'm going to make those little punch marks so that on this side I can then slip in my card. All right. Now I'm going to take the bottom of it and I'm going to slip it from underneath, and I'm going to continue to punch all the way up my piece of scrapbook paper. Now it's a little fiddly getting it in there. And if you do the double, if you have this punch and you do the double, you just want to make sure you've sliced a big enough area to wiggle your punch in there. All right. So this one's a little tighter. All right. I think I could cut this one a little longer. I didn't follow my pencil line completely. And I really think the one will work okay. Years ago, I was making greeting cards and then thought, well, what if somebody wants to put in a little cash money and secure it, or say like a Visa gift card? And then somewhere, I don't know, I saw this punch, and so I was able to purchase it. And then when I was thinking about my vintage playing cards, I thought, oh, I have that little punch. So now I've got them all punched. I'll put that aside, put my little cutter blade aside. Then I'm going to take one of my 110 pieces of cardstock, and ideally I'm going to glue that on here. So I'm going to take my glue, and I'm going to glue this whole top surface down because I don't need that to be loose. And I'm just going to come down the edge. You just don't want to get any glue where you have your tabs. And that's down the center, right? I've got dangerously close to the bottom there. Now, of course, you can use your dry tape, you know, your runner tape gun. You can use your, what's that other tape? It's not coming to me right this second. Score tape. You can use score tape, anything that you might have or that you might prefer other than glue. But I'm using my glue. All right. Now I'm just going to very gingerly flip this over. Try not to get my fingers in too much glue. And I'm just going to eyeball that and pop it down. Now see, I got a little too much glue here. It's coming out. So I'm going to take my baby wipe, just clean that up. And again here. And now I'm going to coordinate my pages. Like I said, same color paper on both the front and the back. And then I'll be stacking these. Of course, I'll have to punch my holes and do measurements to do my Copic stitching. But I think this is going to work good for me. A little vintage card storage journal. I'm going to need quite a few pages. So once that dries a little bit, I should be able to come in here. Hopefully, I should have popped those out a little bit, I'm thinking. Well, they're not glued down. Let me see what I have here. I gotta pop these little guys out. See, I punched them the other way, so they're kind of leaning in. So make sure you just give those a little wiggle before you glue them down if you have the punch. Now the other thing you can do if you don't want to fuss it around with cutting a tab, the bottom one's going to be tough because I've got that glued down. There we go. I didn't punch that one so good. See, I got a little cray-cray with the glue there on that bottom. So now I can come in. I'm not going to pull out more cards. I'm just going to use these. And then you can coordinate your pages. You'll notice that I have all flower cards here. Right? You could do Christmas, animals, you know, whatever. You could just mix them all up. So then I'm going to just work and come back to the back side of my page. And then as I get my vintage cards stored in there, I'll have them all in one spot. And I was going to tell you also, if you didn't want to fuss around with this, the other thing you could do is just make little rectangles. Let's see, let's do the back of this one. And make yourself some pockets. And then you would just glue the 3 sides, and then you'd be able to pop your card in that way. And then just put however many you can fit on your page. And like I said, you can adjust the measurements to do whatever works for you. But this is what I'm going to do. So this is my light bulb moment for today. A fun way for me to store my vintage playing cards. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And don't forget, take time to be creative and enjoy the journey. I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.